Okay, Chris, are you going to talk? Are you going to fix your audio?
He may still be muted. Welcome, everybody, to our Tuesday session of Bringing Humanity Together. Today we have Share and Care with Sandy Chernoff, and we are under the umbrella of Bringing Humanity Together, where we'd like to bring humanity into the workplace by bringing the employers and the employees together. And in this one of three groups that we have, we like to bring everybody together to have an open and honest dialogue, fun, and we'd like all of you all to join us. We have sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Tuesday is Share and Care with Sandy Chernoff. Wednesday is Conversations for Humanity, and Thursdays is Happy Hour or Humanity Happy Hour. I apologize. So as you're logging on, be sure and let us know where you're logging on from. If you're watching on the restream, we are allowed 10 people in our live session for now. So feel free to log in to the link that's on the website for today's call, and we will let you into the green room. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on the live for LinkedIn, feel free to comment where you're from. And if you're watching on the replay, make sure you use the hashtag replay and let us know where you're coming from. We'll have people monitoring both the chat, so feel free to put any comments or anything that you would like to add. And feel free to join our conversation live. So Sandy's going to kick it off today for Share and Care, and let's take it away, Sandy.
Okay, well, what we're going to talk about today is if you are leading, like if you are given the opportunity to be a leader for some reason or other, how would you do it? Like what sorts of things would you do in order to lead your team well? What kinds of things would you do? And it's a matter of understanding that, you know, leadership is kind of it's a personal thing, but by and large, it's something that needs to be done with compassion and with support and with encouragement and with good listening. And if we're not paying attention to the people that we're supposed to be leading, it's going to be difficult to be successful leading them. And a really good leader needs to get to know their people so that they can see the potential in their people and help them to fulfill that potential. Because when that happens, then their self-esteem rises, their self-confidence rises, and they're going to do better jobs. So it's just a matter of them getting to know their people really well so that they can help them to be the best they can be. And that's really what a leader should be doing. You know, it's not a matter of you know, being the commander and telling you how to do and, you know, whatever. I mean, that's not really leadership. Leadership is about walking the walk, not so much talking the talk. So you want to lead by example. You want to do the things that you want your people to do so that they'll realize that this is the way things work in this group or this team or, you know, whatever's going on. I actually have something I would like to share that I found today that I thought was kind of interesting. So just a minute. How do I do that? Okay.
You gonna share your screen?
Okay. How do I do that, Chris?
You go share screen, which is
okay. Just a minute. Okay, so hit the share screen, but do I pull it up first?
it should already be automatically in your computer, and then you have to just hit your either Chrome tab or window.
Oh, okay, just a minute. Oh.
When you share the screen, everyone will see what you have open. So just go ahead and open it afterwards.
There we go. Here we go.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. All right. So what I want you to see here is that this is, oops, where did it go? Did I lose it again?
You had it up there.
Yeah, here it is.
There we go.
All right. So what I want you to see is that this is from a psychological perspective in terms of, you know, a transformational leader will exhibit the following traits, if you will, or, you know, this is the way they will go about doing things. So number one, we have idealized influence. I want to get your feedback after this, Brian, because I know you have your own ideas about leadership. So transformational leaders walk their talk as an exemplary role model for their followers. Inspirational motivation. So transformational leaders can clearly express their visionary ideas in simple language to inspire their audience at all levels. Individualized consideration. They genuinely care about helping others to self-actualize, helping them to overcome problems with actionable strategies. And finally, intellectual stimulation. They are both creative and pioneering, challenging others to transform the status quo and boost performance. So these are the kinds of things that, you know, I think that really good leaders can do if it's, you know, if it's a matter of, again, this is paying attention to the people that you're leading and helping them to be, you know, the very best that they can be. And if we can do those kinds of things, then we can really help them and we can get the best from our people. But if we're not doing those kinds of things and listening to people and leading by example, you know, talking the talk is very nice, but if you don't walk the walk, it's not good enough, because you need to show that you're committed to the kinds of things that you expect your people to do. So, you know, and again, we're very imperfect creatures. Even leaders make mistakes, but they got to own them. So in other words, you have to be accountable. You make a mistake, you've got to take responsibility for it and say, okay, that was my mistake. So here's what we're going to do to fix that. And if you do that, then when your people make mistakes, they know that you're there to help them and support them and help them deal with it. Then there will be a discussion about it and we can solve it. But, you know, if people are finger pointing and yelling at people and so on, it's just going to mean that the next time they make a mistake, they're not going to tell you, they're going to cover it up. And other people won't share it either. Hi, Melinda. So, you know, it's just a matter of what are we doing? And I think that, you know, really good leaders are people who pay attention to their people. And that's probably the most important aspect of a leader. You know, it's not a matter of being bossy and telling people you have to do it this way. You know, I mean, that's not good leadership. Good leadership is listening and encouraging people to make their own decisions on things and listening to their suggestions, because when they're out there doing the job, maybe they've got a way of doing it better. And so let's listen to them and give them the opportunity to express that. And if we think it's good and everybody agrees, then give them credit for coming up with an idea that's beneficial to everyone. And some leaders take the credit, you know, from other people for themselves, which is also not a good practice, because that means that people probably won't share things again because they know that you're just going to take it. So we don't want to do that. Leading is not a bossy role. It's not really what leadership is all about. Leadership is helping your team to be the best they can be, and helping them by encouraging them and supporting them and helping them to fulfill their potential and recognizing the skills they have and acknowledging their contributions when we're doing things. And I think if a leader can do that, then they'll probably have a pretty good team. It's just a matter of how they lead their people. So what do you think, Brian?
Well, it's all very interesting information and knowledge. You know, what people tend to do is they describe leadership from the context of the observer providing information about or describing. If you read a leadership book, they all basically say the same thing. They give traits, qualities, prescriptions, how to, should, shouldn't, and so forth. But that in and itself isn't leadership. They're just simply structured interpretations of leadership. Leadership resides outside of qualities, traits, prescriptions, and so forth. You know, and in many ways, it's what's needed and wanted at that moment. But, you know, leadership doesn't exist while leadership is happening, right? I mean, I had mentioned this to Chris the other day. It's a bit like watching a sporting event from the stands and providing an account and or description of what it is that you think you're seeing down on the court or on the field, but being involved in the actual play on the court or on the field is different. Leadership isn't occurring as it's happening. It's not like you're sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a leader now." It's you only know you're a leader after the fact, after it's over. Oh, I was a leader there. So it's nice to talk about what people should or shouldn't do in terms of leadership, but outside of those concepts is where leadership exists, is a presence, not as a description or being of something. So leadership or leaders are ways of being. They're not descriptions of. The description of takes you away from it. That's not what leadership is. At least from what I've examined and studied and so forth. And it's interesting because the more I look into it, the more we learn about what leadership is, the less useful it is. See, what we learn isn't useful. Knowing what leadership is does nothing for us to make us better leaders. It just gives us more information about what people think leadership is or isn't, but that doesn't make people a good leader. In a weird way, what empowers people is the stuff that's useless for them. It's not useful. That's not really what it is. The inquiry into leadership allows for a particular space or clearing that allows for leadership to occur. But it's the inquiry into it, not the answer. The answers are useless in many ways and actually are a detriment. I don't want the answer. Doesn't matter. It's not interesting. Being a leader is different than finding out what it is or reading something in a text or, reading someone's leadership book or taking a seminar for $99.95 of learning the 12 steps of how to do something. It's like, great. It's strange. We talk about strategies and so forth. It's like, well, we don't implement a strategy as we're implementing a strategy. You're just reacting and being and doing what's necessary. It's like, Melinda could relate to this of being in the military. It's like you go through a lot of training of how to do certain stuff, but when the gun, pun intended, goes off, right, you're not worrying about what you're doing. You're making sure that you don't get shot, the people next to you don't get shot, and you're firing at the people that need to be fired at. Yep. You're not thinking about, oh, am I doing this correctly? Do I make sure that I'm leading right? Am I nice to this person as I'm doing it? That's not present. So leadership becomes present or action becomes present to an extent. It's the same conversation, Chris, that I've had with you for months. We talk about humanity, but actually bringing your humanity is different than talking about your humanity.
Well, it's also going to be different with different people, Brian.
Sure.
The same approach doesn't work with everybody.
No, absolutely not.
You've got to know your people. And if you haven't listened and figured out who they are and what matters to them and so on and so forth, there's no way you're going to be successful leading them, whatever that means. Correct. It's a matter of I agree with you. It's not, sort of straightforward and this is what you do or this is what you don't do or whatever. You've got to pay attention to who you're leading and you've got to adjust your leadership style to the different people that you are dealing with, because it's not one suits all. It just doesn't work that way. And especially when you're dealing with different personalities. So it's a matter of, learning who your people are and then figuring out how to support them the best way you possibly can so that they can be the best they can be.
Yeah.
And then we all win.
And we've talked about it. It's even, when you're in the presence of leadership, how do you know you're in the presence of leadership? You walk into somebody's office, whether they're a CEO or otherwise in some hierarchical structure of a business, do you find their leadership within their drawers? Like, are they in their pockets? Like, how do you know that they have leadership? Like, you guys laugh because it's completely absurd of how we describe it. It's like, oh, you have leadership, so I need to get it out of you. I had that conversation with Mike Cotty earlier today.
Brian, it's like what you say about charisma. Chris has charisma. How do you describe that?
Yeah, well, but the traditional, I would say, the way in which most people go about it, the observer providing an account about leadership, it looks at it as there's leadership over there, and I want to get that and put it over here so that I can then mimic what's over there. And when you start to unpack it for a moment, you kind of ask yourself, well, first of all, how did it get in there?
Yeah.
Like, is it like hanging around somewhere and you just kind of like walk into it? Is it something you pick off a tree? Like, is it all of a sudden like I drank something and I became a leader? Like, so it's absurd. I mean, the absurdity of it is astounding. So my question then is, if that's the case, why is it that only some people have it and others don't? Did they like not drink the magical fruit, right? So, is it really inside someone? And I had that conversation with him saying that leadership doesn't exist in someone, because he made the comment of, it's a leader's job to get leadership out of someone else. Sounds great, wonderful. That plays good, a lot of agreement with that. Too bad it's crap. It's not in someone. Just like charisma. Charisma doesn't reside in you. See, charisma resides in a space outside of concept. It's a way of being. It's like learning a martial art. You can't learn martial art. You become martial art. And once you become that, you become the expression of it, and it shows up that way, right? So I think leadership's a bit like that. It's not something that you learn. It's something you become. It's a way of being. It's like a dance with the world. You interact with people differently. You kind of in kind of a crude way, you make it up as you go along.
Well, to a certain degree, you have to, Brian, because we're dealing with different people. I mean, there are some basic things that generally work. And as I said, one of the basic things is a really good leader has to be a good active listener. If they don't have good listening skills and good communication skills, they're never going to be successful. But that's a basic thing. But other than that, you've got to adjust. You've got to adjust to your people, and you've got to let your people know that you're there for them, because it's a matter of they've got to trust that you have their back, and that you are supportive and encouraging, and that you know who they are and what they want to do, and all those different kinds of things, and give them the opportunity to use their skills.
Yeah, and I guess my question would be, what makes you know that they have to be a good leader? See, suppose that wasn't a prerequisite. See, that's based on an observer. That's based on your interpretation of what a leader is. And I'm saying perhaps it's outside of that.
Well, but I think that there are some people who are sort of naturally good at it. They just kind of know what to do. But I think that if somebody wants to become good in a leadership position, there are things that they can learn, Brian. And one of them is one of the first things is effective communication, which started with the active listening.
Understand.
There are other things that you can do. You've got to pay attention to the people that you're supposedly leading, because if you're not doing that, how are you going to be successful with them? I mean,
I get that. And what I'm saying is that what you learn doesn't make a difference in being a leader. See, I don't think it's the concepts that matter. Learning how to listen doesn't make you a better leader. It makes you a better listener.
Yes, but
being good at getting results makes you good at getting results. That doesn't make you a good leader. See, I don't think it has anything to do with them. We're conjoining the two and saying they're the same. that if I get good results, I'm a good leader. But I don't think it's the same thing. I think we're collapsing them and making them the same thing.
Well, I think that somebody becomes a leader because they're appointed by somebody up above. And all of a sudden they have this leadership title. Okay. And they may or may not be what we expect to be a good leader, but they are somebody that is privy to information from higher up that needs to be disseminated to all the different departments or whatever, and they're it. And I don't care whether you're a leader or not. All the qualities that Sandy talked about are all qualities that we all need to be using in life. And I don't think you have to have a title to actually be a leader. If I can help someone in solving a problem, then that's leadership. If I can be a good listener and I can, be the rah-rah girl for the team and say, come on, guys, I know this isn't a fun thing, but let's get it done. Let's knock it out. Maybe, there's some deadline that all the satellite offices have, for example. And you can be that encouraging person to say, nobody likes to do this, but it's got to be done. Let's get it done. Come on, let's be the first one to get it done. Be encouraging, in that way. And you don't have to have a leadership position to do it. I think it comes from the way you are and the way you are in life, just the person you are. There are plenty of people out there that are given a leadership role that are not organized. They don't listen. They hit or it's hit or miss. It's a crapshoot of what you're going to get every day. They don't follow the rules that are set by the organization, but they have a title of a leader. And that's how throughout the 40 years of nursing, I realized what kind of leader I didn't want to be. And then I realized, number one, I didn't want to be in leadership because I wanted to be with patients. But also I realized that I didn't have to have that title to be a leadership and help people.
It's true.
So, I love all the things that you talk about, but I think there's all things that we all need to be doing in life.
Absolutely. It's basic stuff. What do you think, Melinda? You're muted. You need to turn your mic on.
Yeah, we can see you, Melinda. We just can't hear you. So while Melinda's doing her thing with her computer to get her audio up, everyone knows in the organization, Sandy, Carla, Melinda, Pauline, when she gets on, ownership for me has been, like you have been saying, an active listener, one who really understands people, knowing not only your role, but also knowing other people's roles and what they're supposed to do. And for me, at least, I know leadership is not about me. It truly isn't. Leadership is about serving others, getting others to where they need to go, and really being that conduit and saying, hey, it's almost like we've been talking about for a few weeks now about the hero's journey. If we can be that guide on that hero's journey with that very hero, i.e. leader, then that leader is going to be not only well served for having that guided path, but then again, you get rewarded for it, they get rewarded for it, and then what ends up happening, Sandy, is everyone in the organization also gets rewarded for it. That's why I have the mission statement that we do. And if I help you, you help me, that we help we. It's a natural law dynamic effect that I have seen so clearly as day. That's the way for me, at least. Like I said, I know it could be different for somebody else. I know that. But for me, at least, that's the path that I've seen and done for a great many years now. And that's the way I actually see leadership. But like I said, it's not about me at all. It's about others.
Well, I agree, Chris, because, as a person that's supposed to be leading, you're dealing with all these other people. And if you can't help them, then what are you doing? That's not leadership, because it's not about the leader. It's about the team and the outcomes that we want to have, and all those kinds of things. And if we can't have those things, then we're not going to get results. So, and I think that different people have slightly different styles, also sort of depending on their personality type and so on. And there are probably leaders who are just bossy, and those are not the kind that we necessarily want to be around. But those that are compassionate and empathetic and supportive, then we have people who are going to be better at leading others. Because like you said, Chris, it's not about the leader themselves. It's about the people that they're leading. And if we don't get to know them and understand them, and figure out how to deal with them appropriately and keep them satisfied with what they're doing and challenged to a certain degree and accountable and all those things, then we're not doing a good job. We're really not. And I think a lot of people, like Carla said, get put into that leadership position, but they don't know what to do. You really have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. So, if they don't know what to do, then how are they going to be successful? And a lot of times those people, they just get set up to fail. I mean, it's a pretty scary and sad situation. But, I think that, and I disagree with you only a little bit, Brian, but I think that people should be given some training in terms of, it's not about you, it's about the people that you're leading. And here are some of the things that you might want to try and do in order to be successful in this new position. Because just putting someone in there and not giving them any instructions and assuming, which we all know makes an ass out of you and me, that they're going to know what to do doesn't help them, and it doesn't help the team. It's a matter of them understanding that it's all about the team that they're supposed to be leading. And they have to be able to help them and support them and encourage them and thank them. And if they can do those things, then they're going to have a much more successful team. And when people are successful, they're happier. And when people are happier, they work better. It's just a matter of, what we're trying to do. And, people who are, do it this way and, very directive and so on and so forth, I don't think that makes a good leader. I really don't. There are a few people who need to be given clear instructions on what to do. And that's okay. If you know who they are, then you give them clear instructions and get some feedback to make sure that, in fact, they did understand the directions that they were given. And, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's lots of people that don't need that and don't want that. And if you start doing that sort of thing with them, you're just going to turn them off. Most people, I think, if you tell them what their job is and they think they know what to do, then let them do it. And let them do it their own way. Why would you care how they get from A to B? What difference does it make? It doesn't have to be how we would do it. But as long as they get from A to B and the result is the result we're looking for, who cares? I mean, I don't know why we have to care what they do. I just don't think that's the important part, or that's the main part, or that's what we should be looking for. If they ask questions and they want some help or some suggestions, then sure, that's how we support them. That's how we help them. But if they want to do it their way, and if the results are what we're looking for, everybody's good. So yeah, it is kind of a difficult thing to describe in terms of, what leadership really is. But it is a matter of really helping the people on your team to be the best they can be so that we can do what we need to do as a team. And sometimes in a team situation, particularly when we're collaborating, the leadership role might actually move around the table, because if somebody has a particular skill that's important for the job, at that point in time, they may be sort of taking the leadership role for a short period of time or whatever. So it's just a matter of understanding that it doesn't always have to be you. Other people can do some of these things, better than you or like to do it. Let them do it. Nothing wrong with delegating. That's one of the most important things a leader can do, is delegate.
Well, you have to surround yourself with people, because everybody knows a little bit of everything. I mean, we all help each other out. I mean, in what I do, there's some people that can whiz their way around Canva that I can't, but I learn from them, and when it comes to putting together promos or whatever, I let them do their beauty, because that's their art. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. I can learn from them, and eventually I'll get there, but I know who to go to get the job done quickly and correctly.
Well, that's another thing about leadership, knowing who to call upon or who to get to help you or whatever. I mean, one of the most important things in good leadership is delegating. So, if there's something that you don't know how to do, or you don't like to do, or you don't want to do, so get somebody else to do it and find the person who will be good at it and who wants to do it. Then everybody wins. Again, it's not rocket science. It's really not. But it's a matter of, it's the humanity thing, Chris. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And a good leader is humane. And if they can bring humanity into their leadership style, they'll be far more successful than the finger pointing and the blaming and the, whatever is going on there. It's not helpful. And it just doesn't get us the results, and it doesn't make your team happy with you. And when your team's not happy with you, they're probably not going to perform very well. So that's not a good thing either. So
they say that you've heard the adage that says that if people feel like they're not going to be listened to, you're not going to have anybody to actually talk to, because they're not going to be listening.
Well, see, Sandy, that's what I've learned so well in the past few years, is I have learned that I have to let go of saying that I got to do it, and try to do it when I don't have no clue how to do it. So that is why I've said, hey, it's like right now, Carla is helping me with Canva. She's better.
I think it's a matter of my eyesight's a little better than yours, and that's about it. Okay. I do not take credit for that, because I've deleted more things than I've actually put together, just in trying to try something else,
But you're so much better than me at that, Carla. You really is. And that's why I said to you on the other day, I was like, I really want to learn from you how you do what you do, because see, I'm not that technically savvy when it comes to stuff like that. That's not my forte. But it's like what you said, Carla, you go to those people who do know what they're doing, and you give it to them and say, hey, run with it. That's your passion. That's your purpose.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm proficient like a lot of other people that I know, but I'm one of these people that, hey, if it needs to be done, I'll give it a whirl,
What's your take on that, Brian?
We are starting to get into the conversation of expertise.
Yeah. No.
that is going to be. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Absolutely.
Being an expert in something, and if you delineate it down to its origins, is really experiencing, or having an experience doing or being or so forth. It's the Latin of it. Look, I mean, obviously there are some people who can do things better than others. I mean, there's always people who are bigger, faster, stronger. There isn't one size fits all, and some people have different skill sets, and can do things more efficiently than others. There's always an aspect of that.
That's why we have different people on our team. Dom's down.
Ultimately is what's the intent behind, or the objective? What are you trying to accomplish? And how do you then, fulfill that, obligation or what you're looking to do. There's nothing wrong with finding different people in different skill sets and so forth. It's easier said than done to find people, but it can be done. And just because they present a certain way doesn't mean that they're going to be good at it. As we've talked in terms of expertise or an expert, what you have to kind of be a little more specific. I mean, there could be an expert in terms of coaching basketball or running a team. Like Pat Riley would be an expert or be considered an expert because he's had multiple championships and has done it for how many years he's done it. Or you have someone who has a sports management degree in coaching and knows all the theories and all the book work and all the wonderful things, but has never actually stepped on the court. I mean, there's two different levels of expertise. As Sandy and Carla know, in order to be a doctor and practice a doctor, not every doctor graduates with an A. You can graduate medical school with a C. Just remember that next time you go in for surgery, Chris.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not going in anytime soon, that's for sure.
No, thank you.
But this is the thing that me and Brian kind of discussed with yesterday. There's the practical, and there's the actual hands-on, and the somewhere kind of like two different spheres of reality to a certain degree, and that's what we're talking about yesterday on the phone. So when it comes to leadership, and I'm going to put this question out there for everybody to take that cake on. Does a leader have to be said expert?
We need something.
What do you say, Carla? Does a leader have to be a said expert?
A said expert? No, because a lot of people think that they have to know it all to be a leader, and you don't necessarily have to know it all. You need to surround yourself with people that can help get the job done, that have knowledge in particular areas. There's a lot of people out on LinkedIn that just because they went through a divorce, they consider themselves an expert and they're going to teach people how to get through divorce. Well, everybody has their own way of getting through it. I went through it 25 years ago. I had to think of how many years I've been married and add 10 to that. This time, but I would not anymore consider myself an expert, nor would I give anybody advice, because everybody's situation that leads to a divorce is completely different. And
everybody.
So I certainly wouldn't go on, and consider myself an expert in that. I think that leaders, everyone can be a leader in one way or another without having a title from above. And I don't think that any corporation can find somebody to be in a leadership position, because they're going to be the ones to appoint them, that knows it all. Because not everybody knows it all.
Right.
But you know where you can go find it. You identify that you and can confidently say, like, I don't know about that, if I don't know about setting up an LLC and all these other tax implications, because in what I do, I don't have to worry about that. So my leadership position is different, or my concept of leading, helping others is different than what Sandy does in terms of leadership, so everything's different, but I don't know it all. And I don't profess to know it all.
I don't think any of us do, Carla, and I agree that, particularly, Brian, when you start a business, you can't know everything you need to know to get your business started. And when I was teaching in an entrepreneurial program at BCIT, I told the students, I said, unless you're very techie what you need to do when you make your business plan is you need a very fat line for your website, because if they can't find you here, you don't exist. And you need to find someone who can make you a nice website that's easy to navigate and that has good SEO on it. And it's got to be someone who knows how to do that. And if you don't have the expertise, then you need to hire someone who does. And it's the same thing with marketing your business. I mean, if you don't know how to market it properly, then you need to talk to somebody who has marketing expertise. It's just a matter of when you make your business plan, you have to consider what you know how to do and what you don't know how to do. And what you don't know how to do, you need to hire people to do it. And then ultimately, you may be able to do some of those things yourself. But initially, you're going to have to hire somebody to take care of some of the things that are important to get your business off the ground. And, you know, even to hire people. I mean, not everybody's a good interviewer, you know, or knows what to do in hiring people. And so sometimes you need to talk to an HR person and find out the kinds of questions you need to be asking and so on and so forth. Ultimately, you probably could get good at it, but it's a matter of initially, you need to get the help that you need to get. And sadly, you need to pay for that. It's just part of getting a business off the ground. And again, just because someone has an idea for a business, and even if it's a really good idea, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be a good boss, because maybe they don't know how to deal with people appropriately and so on and so forth. And I believe it's one of the reasons why so many small businesses fail, because they just don't know these people. They may have this great idea for what their business should be, but if they don't know how to deal effectively with people and with customers and with sub-trades and, you know, all the things that you have to have, then you're not going to be successful, because you're going to be pushing people away. So it's a matter of, what are you doing? And that's why I still say this, Brian, one of the things that's really important for all of us to know how to do is to have effective communication skills. Because if we can't, you know, articulate things clearly and with integrity and with honesty, then why would anybody want to have anything to do with us? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's another example that you've got to set. So your communication skills are very important. And I strongly believe that anybody who wants to learn how to do those things can be taught. But it's a matter of if they want to. If they don't want to, then, as I have said before, you can go over there and bang your head against the wall, because nothing's going to happen. But if they want to, then yes, they can be taught how to do that. And you can role play things and so on and so forth until they're comfortable with it. And then they can, you know, start figuring it out for themselves. But it's one of the key tools, if you will, or strategies or skills, or I don't care what you want to call it. But if you're going to be dealing with people, you've got to be able to communicate well. And that's a very, very important aspect of just, you know, in general in life today. If we don't communicate well, we're going to have all kinds of misinformation and miscues and all sorts of things that are going to give us nothing but headaches. So it is very important. And of course, with active listening, Brian, the important part of active listening is to get feedback. Because unless you're a mind reader, you don't really know what the person you're speaking with has heard. So unless you get some feedback and make sure that the message you sent was in fact the one that they heard and that they processed it and came to the conclusion for what you're expecting, you know, otherwise you're going to have disappointment and resentment and all sorts of things that aren't very much fun. So it's very important to get some feedback. And again, don't ask them if they understood, because they're always going to say yes. They don't want you to think they're stupid. So it's a matter of, that's not the right question. The right question is, what do you think I expect of you? That's the right question, so that you know that in fact they are on the same page that you are. Because otherwise, if they're not, you're not going to get what you want. And so you're not going to be happy. And of course, they won't be happy either, because they disappointed you. So we want to make sure before we part ways that in fact they do understand what they are expected to do. I mean, you don't necessarily need to tell them exactly how to do it, but you know, you do need to. So just say, I'll be right back.
So Melinda, what's your thoughts on what we've been talking about today when it comes to leadership?
I think everyone pretty much explained the different attributes and different qualities and characteristics that a person needs to exhibit on the job. to be effective communicating and working with the people and getting tasks. Because if people are not listening to you or you don't speak in a way that people understand you, you get no. So you have to have the communication set, the effective communication goals, and you have to understand each other is saying and communicate effectively, or else you get nowhere. So as much as people want to put it as a title or whatever, it has to be really something that we can work with at the job at the front, that we can together say, well, this one says A plus B equals C, and then we do whatever to make ends and come together, and we come together to make a result of. And at the end, it's an effective communication. What did we learn, and what should we know, and what is the next step? We all should be on the same page. If we're not, then we have problems. We have situations that we have to go back and answer, ask questions. Why do we have such porous situation? It should be fluid at this point, you know. So to make the work and the job efficient, effective, we have to communicate in a manner that each one of us understands each other. And it's very simple, no matter where we're from. So we have to look to do that. That's a very important part of the day-to-day operation on the job, you know, as well as taking on the task as, okay, the manager just said, now we're going to do this task, and this will be done at the end of the day by such and such.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to get there, there's ways and means, and there's no right or wrong way, as long as we come to the same point at the end and effectively communicate, get the task done, and keep moving, and not ending up in the same situation because we're not asking questions and going backwards. Instead, we should be going forward, asking, being proactive workers together, and helping each other. And that's part of it too, helping each other, being flexible and understanding and compassionate to your coworker. Because that all these things are factors as to help us to get this job done effectively. And that's why people are either just haters or they're effective communicators. And to be a more effective communicator, it takes all these different variables and different things happening to make it happen in the world of work. So I do agree.
So let me ask you this, Melinda, because I know you had some technical issues with your computer, and we were talking about this too as well. When it comes to a leader, do they have to be an expert to be a leader?
A leader to me is you're getting it from the experience. You don't have to be an expert, like you know the jargon or what the language. I think it's through walking through it and doing it each day that you're appointed session and you're just doing it and making the effective communication and leading, not waiting. You're just going on what you know you're supposed to do and not waiting for others to tell you. You're leading that organization group to make them do the next task activity, to move everything in that way. So you don't have to be an expert. No, I don't think so. You should know knack of the job, the real rundown of the job, and how to effectively communicate with the people, make things happen. The turnaround time should be effective, that you get it done, the task done, not being sitting there waiting and, like no one's talking to no one. It should be communication around the whole table. Communication is going so that everything is running smoothly and efficiently and effectively at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, I think, a good leader will know some things, but the things that they don't know, they have to bring people on who do. So
they'll learn.
Yeah, well, they'll learn. They will learn some of it, but
yeah,
it doesn't mean they'll turn into an expert. But it's a matter of
not at all. No, I don't think you have to be an expert to on that role. I think that if you have the attitude, the mentality, and you're prepared for it, you really know what you're getting, take the advantage of it. Be that, aggressive, assertive person to do that job and to deliver and try to make it effective in every way that you can. You don't have to be a per se expert. No, I would say that. In every field, we all should have an expert, and that's not the case for every single thing. So, just that in general, as long as you are able to do that job, make it happen, facilitate the change, make the communication happen, that everyone understand each other, and all that. That's what we need to do.
Okay, Brian, you got to go into that.
I don't mean it jokingly, although we joke about that. Suppose everybody is an expert. Everybody figures out how to get through life, through work, in their own way. Like, we only consider them not experts because they don't do it the way we think they should be doing it or the way we would want them to be doing it for what we believe are the best results. But imagine if people were able to get through life. I mean, look, there's been people on the earth for 1 million years, and hopefully there'll be people on the earth for millions of more years. Life has turned out. We've gotten to where we are now. Like it or not, this is where we are, and we've figured it out. Like, there's ups, downs, and everything in between, but we've still gotten here. Like, by the very nature of saying that we aren't an expert, that we're saying we have to learn something in order to be, right? It's a little like the delineation or the separation that we make in leadership. In order to be a leader, you have to have a follower. Well, that changes the notion of what leadership is, right? I mean, what if they're not co-joined? What if they're two separate things and had nothing to do with one another? So being a leader or being a person or being an expert is just experience. I mean, we all have different experiences. Now, if you're talking about expert as in mastery of something or knowledge or greater level of knowledge of something, yeah. There are people who have greater knowledge of stuff, but that's more a product of their experience or things that they pay attention to, right? I mean, you obviously walk into a restaurant, Chris, and you see things differently than I do. Okay, Carla and Sandy will walk into a medical facility and see things differently than I will because their experiences are different. That doesn't make it expert or no expert. That just makes it different.
The stories that we could hear from Carla and Sandy, I can just hear them now.
There's not enough adult beverages in happy hour.
I can open up a car hood and I will look at a car hood and stare at it for the next 50 years and not figure a damn thing out. But if you take it to a mechanic, they're going to see things that I don't see. But that's purely a byproduct of experience, of how things show up to them and what they're looking at and what they're not looking at, right? We consider that and we make up a story that they are an expert. And I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that's an interpretation that we give them or a description. You know, we're just experiences.
Well, I can take that into nursing because across the board, whether you're an associate degree nurse or you're a diploma graduate or a BSN or you went on to get an advanced degree, it's all based on your experience. And it doesn't mean that one is necessarily better than the other. We're all nurses. It's just that some people have had more experience than others. And, when I was working as a nurse practitioner, people were like, oh, wow, you're a nurse practitioner. And I said, you know what? Anybody could go to school and learn what I learned. And as far as I'm concerned, you could learn it in the workplace and not have to necessarily learn it in school. It's a matter of experience. It's a matter of practice, and it's a matter of repetition.
Yeah, it's not an invalidation of the information or experience that people have, but it's also not the putting it on a pedestal hierarchical manner in which we tend to look at experts.
Yeah.
It's just, why is it that we go to some people and not others for certain information? Is it simply because they're perceived as? Because I can tell you right now, in the last year and a half, there's a lot of people who are perceived to have information greater than others, and it's a bunch of what.
Yeah. Yeah, we won't go there.
We won't go there.
But my question is still kind of, Chris, we had this conversation. Do we then, and I think Sandy maybe even touched on it in terms of business, do you trust someone more because of letters in front or after their name?
Not necessarily.
Is that ultimately what we're responding to?
No, I respond more to experience in terms of actually seeing them do their job and doing it well. That means more to me than a whole bunch of letters beside their name. A lot of people can have letters beside their name. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are, really good at what they do. It just means they had a lot more schooling than somebody else.
Correct. I agree with you, but the way people behave is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it is.
A so-called person, AF, with a doctor after his name is looked at as an expert.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And people listen to him because he's perceived an expert. Yet what if he doesn't know right versus wrong or left from right?
Mm-hmm.
See, we're assuming he does because of the letters, or most people are, I should say. And that's what I think is fascinating about expert.
Well, and the thing is, in both medicine and dentistry, Brian, a lot of it really has to do with experience, not so much book learning in school. And the people who are very good at their job are people who have had very good experience, and that's why they can figure a lot of things out. Medicine and dentistry, in a lot of ways, it's educated guessing. Because a lot of times they don't really know what's going on. And
It's an art.
It is. And it's a matter of trying to figure it out. And sometimes that takes a lot of testing and a lot of time and a lot of consultation with other people in the field. And that's why there are specialists.
Yes.
And even sometimes the specialist. I mean, my daughter recently had a problem. And in the end, you know what? She figured it out for herself because she's a dietitian. And her physician said to her, it's a good thing you're a dietitian so you could figure out what the problem was. She went to 3 different specialists and none of them could figure out. They did tests and all sorts of things. They could not figure out what was causing the problem that she was having. So she kind of stepped back and figured it out for herself. Her physician was just, she said, good for you. Good thing you're a dietitian and could figure this out, because obviously none of us could. And, it's just, it's very interesting, but it does depend on your approach to things, your perception, your view of it. And part of that is experience, absolutely. But part of it is stepping back and trying to get a better view of this and figuring out where you're coming from or where you should be coming from or, who else you need to talk to. It's not always the experts, Brian.
Well, just because you went to medical school doesn't mean that that they're all there is to medicine. It just means that you've had a certain level of exposure to different things. And there's a lot of things out there that nobody's ever seen, that haven't been seen yet. Or maybe a few people have seen it.
Yeah.
Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Melinda, when you were in the military, did that same kind of thought process was going on? If you had a sergeant, master sergeant, that kind of thing, how did that dynamic work out?
Yeah, I saw a lot of things that made me wonder about things and, the order and levels of people and the tiers and the admiral and the this and all the different people. Sometimes when they would come to visit you at a specific watch and they're going to tell you about something and maybe you're watch, sometimes the person who is the highest there, you see them in an attitude because, maybe 2 of them are the same levels and they wear the same chevron and whatever. And sometimes you see in the attitudes and the click in the face, you saw that. And but at the end of the day, the whole thing is who are you going to take the, listen to, and it's just one person just saying what you're going to do. And sometimes it's almost like conflict of interest because they're like similar, but they might have different position as because of what they majored in or minored in the school, a school, whatever school they go to, So yeah, I do see that, and that was very interesting to see. And who can say, well, I'm going to be the guy who, give the order, and they're going to follow the suit. Like, situations arise, like there was problems, and kids doing things on recruit watch, and when you just came, and so they were tightening down on stuff, and they would tell you who, what, and who is in trouble, and who is going to affect the barracks in this group and that group. So you did see that who is higher and who is taking pain as to what we're going to do. And I remember once when one of the kids just came in and disappeared. I don't know the story, but he disappeared, and they were trying to figure out what's the most efficient and effective way, and just making sure that everybody was accounted for and who's doing it, and taking the reign and saying, well, now we have a set count of people in here and X, Y, Z, and who's going to be on watch, and that's to be a certain amount of people and doing activity and walking activity. So, it down to who's having a higher say level of, it's almost like wearing the thing on your sleeves, basically. You're standing there looking at that guy, and that's who you're looking to. And, at the end of the night, Sergeant whoever or the Admiral or whatever, and sometimes I had two of them, these people are the same kind of levels, but there's still one that was higher. You took from the higher guy, and the other one, you still gave what you do. But sometimes that's what we have in the world of work, when you have people with similar qualifications, and people don't realize that you have to make a plan as to who's really going to show and pull the rein and make this happen, where everybody is on the same page at the end of the day and getting the duties done efficiently and effectively.
Right.
So yes, I've seen that.
Sandy, another great and engaging conversation led by you as always.
It was fun, Chris. These things are always fun because they're interesting, and because the people that are actively involved in this and sharing their ideas are good. I mean,
yes.
I don't always agree with Brian, but I like to hear what he has to say because he also coming from a very different place, and I think it's good. I like it when somebody's coming from a different place and you sort of sit back and go, well, I never thought of it from that perspective before. So that's kind of interesting, and it's just a way to learn. And I think that he has a lot of insights into things and he looks at it in a very different way than the rest of us do.
Yes.
And I think that's good.
That is good. That is
good.
And tomorrow's call is going to be led by Brian about experts in authority. Do we actually look to them to be the authority as they are? And he kind of touched on about, do we need to have said letters in front of us to have that carried weight into that? Do we look to them saying, hey, they're a doctor, they're a PhD, whatever, that kind of thing? So me and Brian was talking about that. And also the very same conversation we'll be having tomorrow with Brian will also be on Clubhouse on Saturday at 1:00. So if you guys are on Clubhouse, I will put in my Clubhouse channel in our Bringing Humanity Together LinkedIn group, so you guys will see that. And if you guys got an iPhone, just let me know. I can send out invites to you guys if you have an iPhone or an iPad, and we'd love for you to be a part of the conversation on Saturday too as well. So Melinda, thank you for joining us again today. So you had the technical issues and difficulties and everything.
That's okay.
Yeah, and if you guys can just stay on just for a couple of minutes, it'd be great. But as usual, Sandy, you're just so energetic and just know what you know far better than I could even possibly imagine. So everyone, thank you for joining us today on Share and Care with Sandy. Sandy, of course, will be here every Tuesday. And then tomorrow, Conversations for Humanity, I will be hosting come tomorrow. And then Humanity Happy Hour will be hosted by none other than Caller Finnegan for Humanity Happy Hour on Thursday. So you guys have a great and awesome, terrific Tuesday. Make it your day. We'll see you next week.
Okay.